Learn to be super successful. Subscribe to my channel, Meathead. They delivered the Doofus Brothers clothes to the minister last night for some reason, instead of here. So they were told a few minutes ago that the clothes were here. So the minister was praying over them, I guess, last night or this morning. Yeah, but the kids probably needed prayer. The minister's retiring in April, Easter Sunday. He came here about 5 weeks before I got here, and so he's lived at the end of the drive. But in old times, that church was for us hundreds of years ago, and we have our own chapel at this end of the castle, a steeple, and inside chapel. It's a small chapel. In fact, when Graham came to the hardcore, that's where he sat, and there was no heating in it at the time. My lifetime boilers went out, and and so they were in there when they were with their coats, and when they were talking, the steam was coming out of their mouth. Last night you saw love doesn't matter. The bottom line is, the greatest tennis coach of all time doesn't know how to play tennis. Just the opposite of you. Doesn't know how to play tennis. Has never played tennis really. All he does is sit at the fucking net and hit the ball. Now just think about that. All the time you spent trying to improve your skills at whatever they were. 185, 190 champions. And I've talked to the old guy, I tried to get him here. And he tried to get me to the U.S. Open, the tennis open, 3 or 4 years ago. Can't remember his wives' names, ex-wives. All the time you spent. Never read a book on tennis. Just the antithesis. What conventional wisdom. Conventional wisdom is not wisdom, it's just conventional. When I first found out about him a long, long time ago, how his preeminent expertise is mind games to get the kids to do his shit, and then he drops them like a hot turd. You talk about Agassi and all that stuff. Just the opposite of you. Now, he's not the only great coach like that. We had a kid here about 5, 6 years ago that was a child prodigy from South America, tennis player. He sat right back about where Graham's sitting, and he couldn't sit in the room during the movie. He'd go in, I'm told, he went in and out, not in this room, where we used to see the movies, sobbing. Because he was telling. And then when we talked about the movie the next morning, like now, he could hardly be choking with tears. It was 100 times worse than that, the movie shows. 100 times. And he got dropped like a hot turd, and he was only in the top 4 or 5. He went there when he was 11 or 12 years old. Since then, that school's been sold off to a big management company. And they grind up the kids like chopped liver. But that's the real world. Once in a while, you get a coach now that cares about the kids. But they're not the ones that are the best. Because it's lonely at the top, and familiarity breeds contempt. Does everybody that doesn't speak English understand? Familiarity breeds contempt. It's hard to put a bullet in the head of somebody you love, like, or even kind of like. Harder than some stranger you don't give a shit about. And you've lived your whole lives that way. Again, I haven't suffered from that. They give me my grandson, I look at it. Well, kiss it, Dan. Okay. And give it back. Same, my dad. My dad didn't tell me he loved me till he was 87, 8. And then love you, Dad. Then when he was 87, 88, I think he knew he was coming to the end of his life. Love you too, son. You could barely hear it. It wasn't audible. Sally was standing next to him when he said it. I didn't really hear the words. Everybody tells everybody when you love you, Mom, love you, Dad. It's like back when I was growing up, they used to say, how's it hanging? When you tell your parent, love you, that's the same. How's it hanging? How you doing? It's like pop culture. Use those words. Comments, questions about the old man. And he's a cantankerous old guy. I only talked to him on the phone a couple times. God almighty. What's in it for me? How much are you going to pay me? He didn't even ask when I wanted him here if you guys play tennis or not. He didn't care. Anything to say about the old guy? Yes, ma'am.
Actually gotten softer as he got grown older.
Well, I talked to him about 5 years. He wasn't too well. I didn't talk to him on his prime, so I don't know that. But I mean, not everybody, almost everybody gets softer as they get older. Some people call it maturity. It's not. You just get tired. You don't get softer. If I'm any softer, it's because I'm tired. I don't feel tired. But, your autoimmune system slows down, all that shit. I mean, but when I went to that funeral, God almighty, I felt 40 years old. I felt like I had a perpetual erection. Jesus Christ, all the other people, I looked like their grandson. Right? I didn't look, I acted like their grandson. And their grandchildren were there. The only thing after the ceremony or the service, the grandkids came back to where you have lunch and shit like that. They had changed. They went and changed clothes. And so now they're wearing holes in their jeans and shit. And a couple of the kids stayed in their suits that they went to the ceremony. But I felt, God damn. Sally doesn't have to bend over and pick up a fucking napkin for me. And one in the couple, normally the female, even if she's about the same age, is normally in better shape. So they were bending over, picking shit up, and the guy was trying to eat standing up. They have these little tables that are up where you're standing up, and his fork and knife fell out of his hands. Now, when I have real bad arthritis, I have trouble holding the things too. But Jesus, I picked up the fork and knife for him. That's where you're all headed. We come in wearing diapers and we go out wearing diapers. I didn't really realize that till about 30, 40 years ago. You get incontinent. I want to go out before I have to wear a diaper. That's a shitty... See, I can tell by some of you never thought of that. If you live long enough, kid, you're going to be wearing a fucking diaper. Slobber coming down your fucking mouth. But they're going to put you in one of those $600 a month homes because your family won't have enough to pay $20, $25,000 a month. That's where you'll be. So you got to make a lot of fucking money. And he's still around. But the bottom line is he doesn't know how to play tennis. Just as Jobs and a lot of guys don't know how to program, et cetera, et cetera. Yes, ma'am.
He really struck me. He does not look back.
No.
If it's done, it's done. Whether it's his wife, whether it's his student, he doesn't even remember the names of the wives and how they students, the one that he called his daughter, loved her. He doesn't remember how she left. Out. Done.
Once they've used you, you're used. Look up the definition of the word used. Once you're used, you're used. That's the real world. I'm not saying that's a good thing. I'm not saying that you should pattern yourself after that. But if you don't understand that that's the reality, then you're delusional. Because when you understand that that's the reality, I tell you, the truth of the matter is that the boards are in transition. I was fortunate enough to have the same board, except for one death. But I was significantly more experienced in picking board members than you are, or anybody's ever come here about. And so I picked right. But I picked guys that I didn't have to explain about, that had extremely successful careers. The guy that founded the North Sea, that saved Maggie Thatcher's government from bankruptcy of the UK, was on my board, Bob Dyke. He founded the North Sea. I call him Dry Hole Dyke. Hey, Dry Hole, you want another drink? Because he had drilled 88 holes dry in the North Sea before he brought in the well in the 89th well at Argyle. Hamilton Brothers was bankrupt. They wouldn't come in shore because if they came in shore, the sheriffs were going to attach, the equipment, but the sheriffs wouldn't go offshore. They were bankrupt for 14, 15 months. Dry Hole Dyke. Okay, anything else? Yes, sir.
Nick knew what the pay price to action was. He left his wife for Andre.
He wasn't a glory seeker, but he demanded excellence. And if he didn't perform in some given time, the kid that was here, that was sobbing all the time, he'd tell you, you got a year to make it. 5 weeks later, you're done. You got a year to make it. Because he'd look at what he, based on all the people that he had trained, the potential, and then he ought to increase his skill sets 5 times in the next 3 or 4 months. And then 5 weeks later, you haven't increased your skill sets, you're gone. All of us have seen jobs, and some of us have had jobs. I never had a job like this. Get your feet on the ground the next 3, 4, 5 months, and then we'll plan what you're going to do. The big boys don't do that. They may tell you 3 or 4, 5 months, and then you just, you went to sleep, and then you're gone. Or if you're not gone physically by being fired, you get moved laterally. A lateral move with the big guys is just, you're being fired. You're being fired. When I was working with JAPEX, the Japanese National Oil Company, who never fired anybody, they'd send you to Tasmania with a one-way ticket because they have a little production there, which is really the end of the world. And normally when a Japanese executive gets moved a long ways, 2 or 4, depending on how senior you are, 2 or 4 times a year, your family come and see you on the company's money. But when you go to Tasmania with a one-way ticket and there's no scheduling for your family to visit you, that's the end of your career. That's the end of your career. But you don't have 2 or 4, 5, 6 weeks to get your feet on the ground with this deal. The people that have done the very best come out smoking. I mean, this is like Moses led the exodus of the Israelites, running from Ramses and his legions. Ramses' generals and Moses' seniors all said, we need to rest. We will die from exhaustion. Moses said, we cannot rest. You cannot rest in this deal. This is a 9-day-a-week, 30 hours a day. Just the antithesis. This is not the 32-hour French work week or the 15-hour Italian work week. That's not what this is. If you want to, hit it for 6, as they say here for cricket, or hit a grand slam home run, hit it out of the park, you got to go till you drop. The best classes, half of you will get sick. 2/3 of you will get sick because you're going to run your body into the ground. But you get used to it and you recoup. Not dissimilar. I haven't had COVID. They're not dissimilar. But you don't get brain fog with this, like COVID. And you recover faster from this than COVID. But it's very similar. Very similar. And we've had Marcus Bauer keeps track of, he still uses the weekly reports 11, 12 years later. And he averaged last year 11.15 hours a day, 7 days a week for the calendar year 2021. In 2020, he averaged 11.85 hours a day for 2020. For 2019, he averaged 11.95. Now, that's not very much, less. Yeah, but he says, and you're going to hear him, I think it's this afternoon, when he says, and he's 36 or 7 now. I can't do the things I did at 26 or 27, physically. And he stands on a treadmill 8, 9 hours when he's in the office, treadmill. And he's got no weight to lose. He has an 8-pack. 8. He hasn't done a sit-up since he was a professional skier. Because there are another set above the 6, for those of you. The Doofus brothers must be getting their hair done or something. I mean, how long does it take the guy to put, to the extent that they call those haircuts? When they shave the sides of the head, and then it looks like, that used to be called a cowlick haircut. When you had a portion of your hair when you were younger that wouldn't sit down. People have their hair cut that way now, and so now he's working about 11 hours. He has a deal with his new wife that he won't work before 5 in the morning. He has a deal. He tries to sneak out, and he got a new kind of computer that you can't hear it when you touch the pads. So he pulls it in. The QLA is no different. We push until we are free or dead. Whichever comes first. Real QLA bots would rather be dead than poor. Cometh the hour, cometh the man. Shakespeare didn't talk about women, but it's cometh the person now, or cometh the it. And the guys and the girls that have been the most successful and continue to be the most successful, dating back to 1993 when I gave my first seminar in May 93, push until they drop. And that's anti. And during the protesters, some of the girls were yelling at me about, you want people to fall forward dead. The old-time football coaches said, if you fall forward because you'll get an extra 2 yards, meaning if you're dead. Fall forward. Now, how opposite is that to now? When there's a company that went public during, just before Corona, something Bubble, I can't think of the name now, where she gave them a week off because the entire company worldwide, because they were too stressed. Yeah. I went berserk. Take a full week off for everybody. These two, you shouldn't, money's important, but and she's the boss, but it's not that important for you. Not that they died, but just that they got stressed. I told you 80% of the employees now in the United States, I can't speak for the UK, cry every week, and I double-checked that with my children that are out there. They say, oh yeah, my son says 100%. And I think I already told you, our daughter says, I make him cry, Dad. I can only remember one gal crying at work back in the 60s. And this sounds awful. She was having her menstrual cycle and blood came down her leg. And the guy saw it and she cried and she ran into the bathroom. That's the only person I ever saw cry early in my career. She was embarrassed, blah, blah, blah. And now, it happens. Okay. Any other comments about Nick? Yes, sir, in the back.
when his second best player left, he couldn't even remember.
Well, see, I don't see ethnicity. I don't see color, any of that stuff. All I see is dollar signs or pound signs. Okay. Or euro signs. He's German. He's this. He's that. And before the euro, I had to remember a little more because they had different currencies. But now, generally speaking, it's the Canadian dollar, the U.S. dollar, one or two South American currencies, the pound, and the euro. But I don't remember the names. And that's why when we did reporting, you attached a picture to your report, just so I could identify a name with a face. Yes, ma'am.
Thing that he said tennis is a simple game. You practice and you develop the habit. So he said it's very simple. He simplified the tennis as a game. So that reminded me, QLA, that reminded me you saying, this is simple.
It is simple.
You just practice, develop the habit.
We develop muscle memory just like athletes do. And then when you answer, after you've done a few deals, I mean, you're 90% of the comments or questions you're going to get from a seller are going to be the same. The same. And what you have to ascertain to the best as you can is what's different about the reason he wants to sell. Is it because he wants to get, he's ill, which is the best reason? Because then, or is it just because he's tired of this business? If he's tired of this business, normally it's because he's not making as much money as he thought he should be making, putting in all these massive amounts of hours. And you'll figure out how to ascertain that. But you're going to know, plus or minus 5%, the reason why they're selling. And after the first couple of, not deals, but the first few phone calls where you've been led down a primrose path and ascertaining what the difference between a prospect and a suspect, it'll waste all your time. You'll learn how to not spend any time with that suspect. And that's why Josh lines them up 6 or 8 at a Starbucks table and just shoves them in and out like cattle. And, I think they treat cattle better. And now, there was a special on BBC a few weeks ago where the cattle goes in and pulls a thing, and then it goes in there when it wants to take, the brushes are going to scrub his back, and then he pulls another thing when he wants to eat, and the cattle goes in there, and the things eat, and then when there's going to be milk, the thing automatic. The guys don't put those milk green things on their udders. I mean, and after you've done a bunch of deals like Marcus, done 80 or 90 deals, he looks at them, like cattle. And then if you're riding horses, which horse is going to give you the best ride with the least amount of work? Okay, and you'll be able to figure all this out. As opposed to until now, you're so excited because somebody returns your goddamn call, and you work on deals too long. When we hear Peter this afternoon, he's going to say that Mr. Peña said, I berated him and belittled him, and he says, "Are you so fucking stupid that you don't believe that this guy's lying to you?" And he said, one deal that he worked on 7 months and it cratered, never had a chance. The other deal he worked on 9 months, had a chance, but it cratered. And he says, I was afraid to put it on the weekly report because Mr. Peña would beat me. But now, it's not exactly my way or the highway. The closer you get to my way or the fucking highway, does everybody understand that? You're going to be, superior. And the other thing is, even the guys that are doing it and gals that are doing it poorly are doing it infinitely better than the competition because there is no competition. The only people that you're going to be competing against are the QLA kids that didn't come to the seminar, that got it off the website. And they're not as good as you. But then, you'll get a 21-year-old kid like I read about yesterday, about a 24-year-old kid that's gone and hit a Grand Slam home run. But 500,000 21-year-old kids tried. He was the one that succeeded. The QLA program is made after all these years for 0.00001%, or 1 in 10,000 can do this. Not that they can't do it intellectually, but they have shown a willingness to make the emotional sacrifices. 1 in 10,000. 1 in 10,000. So that's about 750,000 people on the planet. They're capable. They don't do it. They're capable of doing it. And then, some smaller fraction of that. That's why it's taken, almost 30 years to develop, in excess of 1 million people that have been successful. Anything else about that? You will struggle many times. I can't do it. And words are important. And there's a whole methodology of, can and can't, and but when you do get negative thoughts, I didn't suffer from that, especially when you feel sorry for yourself and oh my God. Jesus Christ. Don't look like the same doofus boys. Do it. Okay, very good. Glad to see you got your stuff. They delivered it to the minister down the road. Yeah, I'm going to have to buy Brian a case of something. He's on my exploratory committee. When you go to court, flashback, have a minister sit in the front row holding your mother's hand or your wife's hand or your girlfriend's hand. Now, I'm not suggesting you pay somebody to dress up like a priest, because I always have a priest in the front row, a legitimate Catholic priest. But people that have seen me in court several times think that I go to rent a priest someplace and to get a priest. And he and your mother or your wife reading the Bible, the whole fucking trial. And then the jury will look over at him, and then they'll look at you, even though you look like a thief. And then they'll look at him. But you got to believe in yourself. You can't use negative words. And it's a great practice when you have kids, you have a spouse. They'll use negative words. And part of your learning process, forming your process, is for you to correct them. I'm thinking about it. I'm going to announce right now, and I'll talk about it more. On May 26th or 7th, are we going to be in Omaha? April 26th or 27th? I'm giving a seminar in Omaha in conjunction with Warren Buffett's annual meeting. It's not affiliated with Berkshire Hathaway, but we're happy shareholders, so we're having it a couple of days before his. We're having one there in Omaha. Since Sal and I are going to be at the Berkshire Hathaway thing, I decided to give a seminar. And so we finalized the stuff right, Kat, in the hotel, etc. And it'll be posted on my website. Yeah, it's free. Anyway, well, I won't say anybody can come, but it's free. So if you look right, but if you're, you look like a painted pervert, security won't let you in. But yeah, so we're going to have that about a month from now. But the negative words are really important, really important. And there, so you can be all you can be. Well, that's not right. Okay. This is the guy that holds the current record of 7 days for a deal. He's done 35 deals, more or less. He was retired, well-to-do, and he came here a couple years ago, 2.5 years ago. And now he's having more fun than when I was 25. And they all say it's easy. But we didn't have to build self-esteem and self-confidence into him. He already had it. And your challenge will be like the people that I saw last night. How do I do this? How do I do that? You're asking the right question, how, not why. But it was difficult for those of you, and I've mentioned it 2 or 3 times, you're still living at home. It's hard. Move to the basement. Move to the attic. Climb up to the attic on a ladder so you don't have to see your family. Dig an extra entrance to your basement so you don't have to go by your family. And I say that because kids have done both of those things. Poorness rubs off. Okay, now we're going to talk about, I alluded to, goodbye YouTube, I alluded to